Brandon, to be playing in New York on a day like today, especially one that was so, just those images from baseball coming back still are in a lot of our minds. Does that mean anything extra to you?
Definitely does. I don't think any of us will forget where we were on that morning. And we were talking about that a lot of us were on the bus here, where we were that day, and being in New York today is extra special. And watching the news this morning, I visited the 9/11 site last year when we were here in New York. Took my family there just because I wanted them to see that and experience it. And so being here today is extra special, and it's a day that we'll never forget.
Dan Connolly.
Brandon, this team I know has surprised a lot of people, and you said, you kind of anticipated some of these things and we're excited to see it happen. But when you look at this so far, is there one aspect that you look at and go, yeah, I didn't count on that, or that really has been a pleasant surprise beyond what I could kind of conceive?
I think we have I just think the amount of young players playing well. I think that's so hard to play in the big leagues, and the amount of players that have improved from last year. Usually you have a couple or a few. I just feel like all of our guys have gotten better. All of our young players that either got experience in the big leagues last year or maybe saw in big league camp and haven't. Now I'm seeing them now. I think that they're just the improvement in our players, and that's a credit to a lot of people. Themselves, and then people that have helped them along the way this last year. But from really our whole roster, the young guys on our roster, I just how everybody's really taken a step forward and gotten better has been impressive.
Next up, Rock Tabacco. Rock, go ahead.
Brandon, with Alex being the 29th man, the corresponding move comes after the game. Is that maybe a little tougher call than it has been earlier this year, and you just wait to maybe see who had to throw a certain amount of pitches in this doubleheader to make that decision?
Yeah, we're going to wait to make that decision till after the second game, and it's not going to be easy. I think we all know that we're a little bit banged up, and that we need the depth right now. We need healthy bodies, just because we have some nagging injuries and things like that. So to lose a player is going to be it's going to be a challenge, and with the season being not 2.5 weeks away, you lose somebody, you option somebody down, you lose them for 10 days, unless there's an injury. That's never easy either. So it's going to be a tough decision after the second game today.
Rich Dubroff.
Brandon, you talked about the improvement that the young players have made. This is your second year managing a lot of them. And for you, what do you think is more important as a manager? Communicating well and getting your message across, which you talk about often, or the strategic stuff?
Well, I want to believe that both are very, very important. I think that's a tough question, Rich. I think they both have equal importance. I really do believe in communication. I think players, especially today's player, needs to be coached and needs to have honest conversations. And guys are getting into the big leagues so fast and young now. A lot of their development isn't finished when they get to the big leagues. So I think that there's just a lot of coaching that goes on up here. I think that's not, it's well understated how much coaching happens in the big leagues now. And I think, a positive outlook, solid communication, players knowing that you have their backs, trust, all those things that we are trying to build here with our players, along with competing at the same time and trying to win every game by making good decisions. I think that there's a lot to go to both those things. As your players play better, then decisions not only become easier, but you get rewarded for your decisions when bullpen guys come in and do what they've done this year for the most part, and those type of things. Pinch hitters coming off the bench, lineup construction, all those type of things. But as your players get better, it's your things seem to fall into place a little bit easier.
Nathan Ruiz.
Hey, Brandon, how much baseball activity has Alex Cobb been able to do over the past week, and what are your limits or your expectations for him today?
Well, he's been able to throw. So he's gotten a pre-start side in, and he feels good. He's ready. So no limitations.
Steve Molesky.
Brandon, has the fact that homegrown players came up and won games for the Orioles been a lift for an entire organization to include Bowie and even maybe to include guys who aren't in Baltimore or Bowie, but are, looking to the future?
Yeah, I think that when your young players come up and play well, then that's extremely positive. Just not, for all the players in the organization thinking that they can do the same thing. Is that what you're asking me, Steve? I'm sorry. Yeah. I mean, when you're a minor league coach, you're watching this on TV and you don't get to see it firsthand. You don't know exactly if you're compete at this level, even though you might think so. But you never know what it's like until you get here. And then once all of a sudden you start playing with players, or you're around players that are getting to the big leagues and then having success, that's very, very helpful organizationally with your players, in that they feel like they can do the same thing. And that kind of builds a great vibe in the organization of, not only do we promote our players, but then we play them also, and they're playing well. And I think that trickles all the way down through our system.
Follow-up question from Nathan Ruiz.
Hey, Brandon, kind of going off that, between the guys who stepped up in the wake of the trades, the guys who stepped up after injuries, do you feel like you have more depth on this team relative to last year?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that we did a nice job of adding depth. Guys like Pat Valleca, Andrew Velasquez, that have been key components of our team so far this year, and I'm able to pick spots and plug both of them in places where we maybe have a hole or we need somebody. But both those guys have done such a great job. Drew, especially defensively, and then Pat with the at bats that he's taken, got us some big hits for us. He's played all over the field. Just done a really nice job of contributing on a good club. And so I definitely think we have more position player depth, as well as that pitching bullpen depth as well.
Jeff Arnold, go ahead.
Hey, Brandon. Dylan Tate's done a really good job in high leverage situations since he's gotten more of those opportunities. What have you continued to see out of him, and how he's handled those increased opportunities that you've given him?
Well, it's an example of increased depth from last year, where we lose Givens and Castro last year. There have been some rough nights. We lose Blyer, we lose Givens, we lose Castro. We have guys like Dylan Tate that have stepped up and be able to pitch, so far into those type of innings, and getting good, middle of the order major league hitters out. So, D Tate's a guy with a ton of confidence. He wants the ball. He's not afraid. I think his stuff is ticked up from last year. He's throwing a little bit harder. Love the changeup. The slider can be really good at times. So I think he's got some weapons also, and he's got a ton of confidence, I think, that he got from last year, because he did have some good appearances last year. I didn't use him in many high leverage spots, but he did have some good appearances, and he's carried that into this year, and he's pitching a little bit more important times in the game.